part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Look up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action. This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright, and you're listening to the Krypton Report.
Hey everybody, today's special episode is an awesome interview with a new guest, but I do want to point out we had some technical difficulties that we weren't aware of when we were recording. There is a slight hum. We have worked on removing much of it, but it is still quite there, and I do apologize. So we will have our guest back on and continue. It was a great conversation. I really enjoyed it, and it was something with the mic in the mixer that we didn't know about until afterwards. But enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Krypton Report. I am your host, Tyler, the Superman of Blue, the man of tomorrow, and with me is not that lovable, cuddly man, James. I have a special guest. That's right. As a lot of you know, I say online, if you ever want to actually podcast, try a podcast, talk Superman, just send us a message. We really enjoy talking with other people about Superman. And today, I have a special guest. Welcome, Steven. Welcome, Steven.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. We were going to try this back last month, right? Earlier this month. I can't time. Just
yeah. I don't even know what month it is. Is it June?
It all runs together anymore. It feels like. And there was one whole day that I was living thinking it was Thursday and it was only Wednesday. So when the next day rolled around, I was all pumped. My wife's like, "It's Thursday, Tyler, not Friday." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Dang it."
In fact, I think it was Superman Day we were supposed to record, or on Superman Day.
It was close to it, yeah.
Yeah.
But as you can hear, Steve is not from my neck of the woods. No. He's from a nice little place across the pond. That's the expression, right? Across the pond, yeah.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah.
Yeah. Which is cool, because I love talking to other people about, anything. But with Superman, like, you know, the perspective that other people have from other countries, it's really fun and fascinating and enjoyable to just get other perspectives. So I'm really excited. You and I have been chatting online for a while.
Yeah.
Just kind of.
I think we followed each other for a bit, haven't we? So.
Yeah, just kind of like you'd share a post or anything, and I'd comment, and we just kind of chat, and then eventually I was like, "Hey, you want a podcast?" You know, it's the next logical step. You're like, hey, let's do this. So what we do on these type of episodes is we're going to talk about a certain story. But before then, I always like to talk about a little bit about just your fandom. Can you give us a brief history of your Superman fandom?
I feel like I need to do the Jor-El, like, come with me, Nelson. You know, that he does in Superman 78.
Come with me.
I guess
we go past galaxies.
Yeah.
Hold on, everybody. Let's go.
That's where it actually starts. When I was like 3 or 4 years old, my dad put Superman 78 on for me, and that was the first superhero thing I think I ever saw. I mean, I might have seen He-Man before then, but I don't count He-Man as a superhero. He's kind of like a different genre, although I just kind of cross it, if you know what I mean. 'Cause I suppose it did start as a comic and a figurine, so...
Yeah, but there's a certain quality, like, about He-Man. I'm with you, like, I don't know, I've never thought about it, but he's more mystical and...
Yeah.
Like...
Maybe like fantasy.
Fantasy, yeah. There we go. He's a fantasy figure. I like that better.
And, so Superman, the first, the Christopher Reeve film was the first Superman anything I ever saw. And I'm pretty sure I saw it before I saw anything Batman, so that's maybe why I prefer Superman to Batman. But I do love Batman as well. So
I love Batman.
I don't hate Batman.
I love DC more than Marvel. I like Marvel too, but DC is where my heart is. I do like Batman.
I'm the same, yeah.
I do like. We're not haters, like.
No. Captain America is probably my favorite, which is funny being a Brit. My favourite Marvel superhero, and I think I like him because he's a bit like Superman, if you know what I mean. So,
yes. I know what you mean.
But I'm not really passionate about Marvel. Like, if a Marvel film's bad, I'm like, eh. If a DC film's bad, it kind of like upsets me a bit. So,
yeah.
Although I'm quite forgiving. I even like the Green Lantern movie and stuff, which everyone hates. So
there is like I like to tinker, and we'll get to this later in some questions about some of your activities. And I'll let you go back and talk more about your fandom. But I like to tinker with certain movies where I'll watch like, if this was edited a little bit different.
Yeah.
I'll love to go in and try to mess with it, like take out scenes or rearrange some stuff or just kind of twist it around and make my own edits. It kind of started, a friend of mine had asked me if I could edit some footage of Deadpool, the movie, for his, I think he was 4 or 5 at the time. And I made like a little 10-minute Deadpool, the first film, like edit just for, a kid to watch and just feel like, I'm watching Deadpool, and then it was just kind of like one of those things like, this is kind of cool. And then you watch a movie like, they should have done this, especially like with Green Lantern, because the way it starts, you're like, man, if they would have reorganized a couple of things. And and one of my edits was starting with Hal, and when his eyes, like doing scenes of his dad blowing up, and then his eyes pop up, instead of having him have like the visions while he's piloting the plane, it happens before he gets up in the morning.
Well, I've long thought if you re-edit that, you could probably go get the raw footage of that film, re-edit it, and make it into a much better experience.
There is someone could get in there, and this isn't the Green Lantern podcast, but I think you could retweak that film and make a better movie than what it is.
Definitely,
So, but no, if I had to say I hated a DC film, the only DC film I would say is probably Catwoman. That's a pile of garbage.
I've never actually watched the whole thing. I think I watched half an hour of it once, and now I'm not watching that ever again.
I'm not a drinker, but
I'm not either.
But at New Year's, my wife, I wanted to do, because we were building up for the release of The Batman, and we were kind of reviewing films and stuff of Catwoman or Penguin if we hadn't already, talked about it. And so for a Patreon, we watched the Halle Berry Catwoman, and my wife and I shared a bottle of wine. And like I said, I'm not a drinker, but she does every now and then. And we did it, and it was hilarious because we're both like, we know it's garbage. We're going in knowing it's crap. That's why we're drinking.
They're probably the more fun ones to do, though, aren't they, really, if you think about it?
So,
you probably have more to say when you're watching a bad film.
Yeah, it is, like, it's fun to be a little objective, like, watch, like, okay, what worked in this? Nothing. Like...
Yeah. Well, it's like Superman 4. I think if you fix the effects of that film and restored some of the deleted scenes, which I don't know if you've ever spoke to Aaron Price.
Yes. I've actually reached out to him trying to get him on the show before. I love seeing his restoration stuff. And
it's so good.
He's
a nice guy as well. Spoke to him. He's a really nice guy.
Awesome. I heard him on a podcast, a friend of mine's, and he seemed like it.
He is, yeah.
The scene where he tweaked where it's Chris and Helen as Superman and Supergirl.
Oh, God.
Chef's kiss,
I just always think I wish he'd have been in that film, like that. I actually do quite like that. That's a bad film I like. Supergirl, I've got a soft spot for it because it's part of nostalgia for me. But if he'd have just been in it, I think he would have elevated it just a little bit more. We did a whole podcast recently with my wife, because my wife had never seen Supergirl the movie, so we watched it and commentated on it. And everything, and there's some cool stuff in there to mine, There's some really good flying effects in it as well. Like, I think some of them are better than some of the refilms, some of the flying shots.
It is because, like, I don't remember off the top of my head now the production people behind it, because it was some of the same people who had just been working on the Reese films, and were working on always perfecting the certain techniques,
Yeah.
So they just kept elevating it, and then.
Well, they later went to Superboy, a lot of them as well, didn't they? And some of the shots in that are actually pretty good now, even for a TV budget. Obviously some of them look hokey and stuff, but
yeah, it goes back and forth. That show is. I'm in the middle right now of watching that show. Like I had watched season 1, but a history was that show never was in reruns.
No, yeah.
And then they took it off DC Universe when that was out, and now there's I don't know if it's available for you guys, but there's a streamer. It's like a free streamer called Tubi. Tubi.
No, I can't get that, unfortunately.
See, it sucks because when they said we have Superboy, I just was like, okay, I'm going to watch it because I'm going to watch it before it's gone. I'm trying to close that gap of fandom, and I hope the listeners are into it because this will probably be a good long chat because we've got a lot of ground to cover, and this is what happens when two Superman fans meet for the first time.
Yeah, well, I wanted to because I believe they've got Freddy's Nightmares on there, which was the old Freddy Krueger. Sorry to go into horror here, but so I've had to buy that on a Blu-ray off someone with all the episodes on because I can't get Tubi or it's on something else that Bloody Disgusting website has their own streaming service now as well. So can't get either in this country though because we're rubbish.
that is perplexing to me. How just learning behind the scenes stuff about how broadcasting rights and stuff work in other countries. And
it's crazy.
And I'm like, why is it so difficult?
Yeah. Well, I imported Superboy on DVD because it's region free, but you can actually get them all on iTunes over here. I don't know if you can over there.
I've slowly been buying season 2 because for the longest time, I stopped when it was on DC Universe because I wanted to get it. Okay, I knew about the history of the show and the changing of the actor and the changing of all the side characters, and then so I was like, okay, I started buying some episodes, but I'll eventually probably buy them all.
Well, my little one loves the Bizarro episodes. He's obsessed with those ones, so
that's cool.
I've downloaded those especially just so I can watch those on his iPad and stuff. So.
My son gets mad every time I watch Superboy because he's like, "That's not Superboy." I'm like, "I know," and he knows about the pre-crisis, post-crisis, I'm like and stuff. I've told him and taught him, and he's 7. He's like, "It's not Superboy, Dad. It's just Superman, and they call it Superboy." I'm like, kid, you're right. Okay, I'm not going to argue with you.
They would have made a Superman shirt. They could have done Superman, but they only had the rights for Superboy. That's why they did a Superboy TV series. I'm glad in a way that it's Superboy. It's good to have that.
It's crazy to me. It's such a part of Superman fandom that's forgotten.
Yeah, I mean, I wish if I could have seen that when I was a kid, I think I would have absolutely ate it up. I mean, I caught it years later. I don't know if you know about Sky Television over here. But
I've heard about it.
They had a few episodes on Sky, and I saw them in maybe 1998 or something, and I was like, what the hell is this? It's ripping off Lois and Clark, and then not realising it came out before Lois and Clark. So, I was wrong.
Well, going back to where you started, I have an infinity love for Superman 4 because I remember it felt like that was always on basic cable every time I was at my grandparents' house. And one time I saw an episode of Superboy, and for years I told people there's a Superboy show, and they'd be like, "No, dude, you're thinking of Lois and Clark." No, I'm not. There was a Superboy show, and I was young, so I couldn't hit the convention circuits or whatever. And then when Superman Returns came out, is when they released the first season on DVD.
Which is probably the worst season, ironically, but yeah.
It's the easiest one to find.
Yeah.
And I was like, there it is! I knew it existed. But here's some other questions for you. Oh, also,
sorry.
You're fine.
I do go off on tangents, I apologize.
No, you have no apology needed. You tangentialize as much as you want because that's what heroes do. I actually prefer Superman 4 over Superman 3.
Well, can I just mention something about Superman 4? When I was a kid, that was my favourite because Superman fights the bad guy in it, in a proper fight. And as a kid, I didn't notice the effects were bad and stuff.
Right.
So
I agree. Same.
I think I still prefer 3, though. I think if they restored 4, I think 4 would leap over it.
Now, let me ask you a question. Have you ever watched Superman Redeemed?
Is that when somebody mixed 3 and 4 together or something?
Yes.
No, I haven't managed to get a copy of that, unfortunately.
Okay. I'm not a huge about a lot of fan edits and stuff, but Superman Redeemed does such a good job of mixing elements from the Lester Superman 2. So it's it feels almost like it's the follow-up to the Superman Richard Donner cut in a way, because it mixes elements from Superman 2 and makes a great narrative using Superman 3 and 4. And I did a whole podcast on digging for Kryptonite about it because it's a very unique fan edit. Anyways, it's an interesting think piece. And just
I don't mind seeing it. Yeah, because I've got a fan edit of Superman Returns that is miles better than the actual version of the film.
Really?
That's called Superman Restored, and it restores some of the deleted scenes and cuts some bits out. It's just a much more thrilling watch. It's got the opening scene when it goes back to Krypton. It starts off with that, so it doesn't start off with some text on screen saying, he disappeared, blah blah blah, and he's done some edits for little things. Like there's a bit where, do you remember when Superman goes to stalk Lois? He's cut a lot of that stalking Lois stuff out.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
do you remember when he goes to a house and he's flying because he's upset afterwards? He changed the narration from Jor-El to Martha watches it earlier in the film, and it just fits so much better.
I have such a love for that movie. Like, I know it's not perfect; it's got its flaws.
Yeah.
It was just so exciting. It was the first one I got to see in theaters of Superman. It held such a special place because it came at the perfect time I needed it in my life. I'd love to watch that. And
I think if you had, sorry,
go ahead.
I think if you had, I think that's another one of those films. If you go in and kind of re-edit bits of it. Like, I think the colour grading was a bit rubbish on it and stuff like that, like little technical things as well. But I think if you could just go in and re-edit it, I think you could make it into a bit more of a better film than the theatrical, because I feel like the theatrical, it kind of plods along.
Yeah.
I think the score is one of the best scores in the entire franchise. I'll die on that hill.
I think John Ottman does not get the credit he deserves as a composer. Because I agree with you. I think his orchestration of Williams' theme is so beefed up that you could play me, because it even starts a little different. Like, it starts with dun, 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 dun.
I actually prefer his version, which might be sacrilege.
Nope, I agree. And like I said, it's not a knock on Williams. It's just he reorchestrated, he changed a little bit, but it's still Williams' music. So it's no way a knock on Williams. So here's another question for you. We got how your fandom started. Check. What does it mean to you to be a Superman fan? Like, is it just like something like my wife will joke and say, like, we're in the cult of Cal. She joked with me because I have so much stuff. And, in my family, like, if people find out you like one thing, that's all they get you. So, like, I have a lot of stuff. It's like, it's tight. Like, for Father's Day, my sister-in-law and her boyfriend, they got me a really cool statue of Superman flying, holding Batman. Because that's what people know to get me,
Yeah.
But what does your fandom, kind of mean to you as a Superman fan? Is it?
Oh, God, you put me on the spot.
I know. I thought about sending you these questions ahead of time, but I was like, no.
It's better in it sometimes. I mean, it might sound daft because obviously I love my family comes first of everything, but Superman is everything to me, and he's I support a sports team over here called Chelsea. I don't know if you know about football or you play soccer, are you? Mm-hmm. They don't mean anything near to me that Superman does. He's kind of my, I don't know, it's just he's always been in my life as well. Got me through some tough times. I mean, when me and my wife got married, we had a bit of a Superman themed wedding. There was a wedding cake with a Superman and I say a Lois, but it was just the bride.
That's awesome. I walked in on my wedding to the Darth Vader march. So.
Oh, that's brilliant! I love that. Yeah.
She planned it for me. It was awesome. Well, it's a little on the other side on the darker side, but
Yeah, well, we walked into the reception after to the Superman theme. A pianist was playing it for us, so that was quite good.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I think it's one of the reasons. I'm not saying I'm not a super good person. I mean, I have my moments on Twitter, and I'm sure you've seen. But I feel like Superman's morals and stuff is what has kind of shaped my morals. I mean, obviously my parents as well, because I got brought up. It's kind of when, not to get too political, but when I see people being racist.
Yep.
It's almost like I can't compute it. I'm I just don't understand why.
No, I'm with you.
I can't understand it. Why does it bother you that somebody's got a different skin colour to you? Because for me, it's I take every person at face value, and if I don't like you, I don't care where you're from, what you're doing. That it's just I might not like you. Or if I like you because I think you're a good person and stuff. So,
you have you have little children, and trying to explain racism to kids is baffling because they just kind of look at you why?
Yeah.
They're like, I don't understand. I'm like, I don't either.
No.
I just.
But yeah, my kids. Yeah.
I use the analogy of M&Ms to my kids. I'm like, all M&Ms taste the same. They all,
that's a good one.
but
Yeah,
they
that's
have a
good,
different
I like
candy coating shell. People,
Yeah.
we're all the same, just we have a different shell on the outside, Instead of blue, someone is, white, someone is black, whatever, I'm like, that's how I explained it to them, like, trying to just, like, teach them. So, that's my wisdom as a dad. There we go.
No, that's good. I might use that. That's really good, that. Oh, I don't think they've tried M&M's, but so they will when they're older.
They all taste
good. He's just... I just love... See, the thing is, he does have all the cool power, so that does help when you're a kid, but as you grow older, you start to, like... I think almost like you start off loving Superman, and then as you get older, you start loving Clark. That's how I'd probably put it.
Yeah. You understand and respect Clark for the person that he chooses to be. And, the whole thing about always, like, he could do anything, but what he does this because it's the right thing to do is a big stance.
Yeah.
And like you said, like, yes, I had morals and everything from my parents, but there's always stuff that, like, impacts you that you watch and, shows or
definitely
celebrities or whatever. Like, just thinking about when you were in school or with your friends or whatever, the influences that they connected with, and Superman was always one that I just connected with, and I think I've talked about on the show a lot, the Smallville version connected with me a lot because I was the same age when Smallville came about, so it was like, we're going through this together, Clark, let's do this.
Smallville is like almost like the perfect Superman story in a way for me. I watched it from day one, and I went through a lot during the period of that show as well. Like my father died. In fact, he died like 2004, so it was like the year before Jonathan Kent died as well. So I had like a bad breakup with a girlfriend at the time and stuff. And it's funny because after Smallville ended, that's when I met my wife. So it's almost like it kind of took me on that journey. It sounds weird, but
no, because like I started Smallville in high school. A month before Smallville ended, or 2 months before Smallville ended, I married my wife.
Oh, wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
And like, how like the end of Smallville is about Clark and Lois trying to get married. And I have a saying, like, I would love to get this on a t-shirt, by the way. It says, you have to go through your Lana to get to your Lois.
Yeah.
Like, and like,
that's a good one,
like you got to go through the heartache, that first love, like, what all that is, to find the one you're meant to be with.
Yeah. And it's funny because my ex-girlfriend was a redhead as well, so it's kind of like traditional Lana.
Yeah, like I still have like that's one of those things for me. Like in comics, is like it's important. Like hair color is important because you only had so many colors to work with. So
yeah,
when you get into these films and like Man of Steel, you have redheaded Lois. I'm like, this bothers me because in the comics she's dark hair and Lana is redheaded. Like, I need these staples to help me know my characters because hair color is a big important factor.
Well, I think it's something like Stacey Hyduck, isn't it? In live action we've had that's been a redheaded Lana. I don't think
there's only
any of the others.
Oh, let's see, it was her, Annette O'Toole, and then I cannot remember.
Sorry, Annette O'Toole as well. Sorry, I forgot about her. Yeah.
I cannot remember the actress's name. It's escaping me. Who played the quick Lana scene in Superman 1?
Oh yeah, God, I've been really thick there. I forgot two other ones. Oh my God, that's terrible.
That happens.
I need to hand my Superman card back.
Nah,
I have to earn it back.
There's too much. There's too much to remember because it feels. If you even look at like our generation, there's been a lot. For the longest time, you just had like Chris Reeve films and George and Kirk, and that's really spaced out. And then all of a sudden you get. Then all of a sudden you get Superboy, Lois and Clark, the animated series, Smallville. And then, Justice League,
to me, though.
And you just keeps going, and Superman Returns. And then, you have a short reprieve, and you just have other characters, and then, boom, Man of Steel, into Supergirl, BVS, then Superman and Lois. So it's just
Yeah.
So what is your favorite version of Superman?
Superman the Animated Series, I can tell you right off the bat.
All right, then here's another follow-up question. Which voice do you prefer, George Newbern or Tim Daly?
I prefer Tim Daly, but I love George Newbern as well. This is something I was going to mention. Like, you get a lot of people who've kind of like, I think we're seeing a lot with Star Wars now, where they kind of cut out the new stuff. I just love Superman so much. I like all the Supermans, so yeah. I don't think there's anyone I've disliked. But with the voice, Tim Daly, if I read a comic, it's Tim Daly the voice I hear.
So last year, I got to interview George Newbern, and I told him, I said, this has always been a question. And I said, I finally figured it out. Like, I picked your voice, and the reason being is because of the lines that you got to deliver.
I think he got more, like, I would say emotional material and stuff. He got more to bite.
Yes, and that's exactly it. It's because, and he's done it through multiple mediums. So, like his speech about being good in Superman Shazam, I love. Superman Shazam versus Black Adam, I love it.
I want that in live action. That's what I'm
It's a great short if you have a chance to
really
find it.
Is. Yeah.
He does the lines in For the Man Who Has Everything, with the Black Mercy.
Yeah.
Which is a powerful emotional episode that gets me every time. And then of course he gets the lines in Destroyer where he talks about, walking his life through cardboard. And having to hold that.
I mean, Tim Daly had some stuff like when what's it called? That Don Turpin died and stuff.
Yes.
Had a lovely speech at the end of that. I think they sound quite similar. So for me, and it's kind of like is it Christopher McDonald who was Jor-El? He did Superman in Bottom Beyond.
Yes.
For me, I just can't think of it right. He's a bit older in Justice League, so he sounds a bit more gravelly. And by the time you get to Bottom Beyond, he sounds like Jor-El because he's like an old man. So
right. I'll take it.
That's kind of my headcanon for it.
Hey, my headcanon is, and there's no real super reason for this, but my personal headcanon is in Superman the Animated Series when he races the Flash, it's Barry Allen. And that's why when he sees Flash again, it's a little different because it's Wally. And that just it builds a whole back history of what the Flash has been doing in my mind,
Yeah, no, I can go with that. It's like that, that Legion of Superheroes cartoon.
Yes.
It doesn't quite fit, but I think you could slot it in there if you really...
We started reviewing that cartoon back in 2019, and then of course DC Universe left, and so it was put on pause, and then I just got to buy it on Blu-ray, and we're gonna pick it back up and start reviewing.
Yeah, I think season 2's the better of the two seasons, but I think season 1's still good. But season 1's more like a Silver Age type thing, where it's a bit more lighthearted, and then it gets a bit darker in the second season.
So, what would you say is your favorite Superman movie? And it can be animated or it can be live action.
This is hard. See, Superman 78 is always going to be. I sort of cheat when I do my rankings of films. Like, I put Superman 78 and Batman 89 in this they're kind of like on a Legends list, so they kind of can't be touched. And then I have like other ones that join it on the Legends list. I know that sounds really stupid.
No. Hey, we all have our special rankings on stuff. Like it's There's no wrong answer to any question. We're not snobs here. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's enough different versions and variations of the character that's appeared that everyone has their first Superman.
Of course, yeah.
Like, which one are they going to see? Like, for my kids, I wonder if like their first Superman's going to be more along with like Man of Steel, or if they'll be Superman and Lois, Tyler's. Like, will that be the one they identify with? Is that Superman?
Well, there might be another one, but it's time you don't know, do you? But it's going. But I think Man of Steel is probably my favourite right now, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because sometimes
sometimes
it shifts. Like, you're just in the mood, and that's talking to you right now, and that's where you're aligning yourself with, and then maybe down the line, you're like, you know what? Actually, I'm feeling this now.
I kind of feel like the stuff that Zack Snyder did with Superman and that as well. Like, I think he took a lot of risks that I think will benefit the character in the long run, and I actually think Man of Steel probably holds up better now than it did when it came out, and I think if it came out now, I think it would be a lot better received. I think it's because it was a bit ahead of its time.
Yeah. I mean, that's how a lot of Snyder's take on characters and stuff has been. Is like he's got to slow it down, Zachy. Gotta slow it down, buddy.
But I feel like with Man of Steel, it's just the score to that as well is like, if you're going to update Superman's score, that's the perfect like way to do it as well. It's just, it's just flawless.
Do you remember that Superman 75 short?
Oh yeah,
cartoon. Like, just listen to it sometime of where it starts with the John Williams theme and then it blends in the middle into the Man of Steel theme.
It works really well as well.
And it works. And I will tell you, since Man of Steel came out, my alarm on my phone to wake up to has been the same thing for 9 years. It's the Man of Steel track, What Are You Going to Do When You're Not Saving the World?
Yeah.
That's what I wake up to.
I think that's the other thing for me where I love Superman 78 so much, but the turning back time ending is... I mean, I know it bothered me as a kid, but as I've got older, I kind of think it's a bit of a cop-out.
Yeah. Where
Superman of Steel, I feel like the ending is just, like, perfect. Like, when he's talking about, like, he needs to do something with his life and, you know, get a job and all that, so he can keep his ear to the ground. And then it's got that music starts building up, and then he smiles at the end, and you're like... I just think that's the perfect ending to, like, a comic book movie ever. Well, for me, anyway. Yeah, it's just Man of Steel just resonates with me in a way I think that a lot of films don't now, and I think that's another reason I want Henry Cavill to come back so much, because I feel like I've not seen enough of him.
Yeah, I agree. Because his sequel is taken up by other characters. He needs another solo film. Like, that's hands down.
And I feel like what happened with, like, I don't want to call it Justice League, but I think that's the best way to think it.
That's what I call it. My kids call it that,
I feel like Cavill got really screwed over in that. Like, he got... As soon as there were a problem with the mustache, they should have just said, right. And then you watch the Snyder Cut, and you're like, what was wrong with what you had? Everything there is, like, perfect for Superman.
Yep.
It's just so weird to me that they went back and reshot loads of his stuff and put in, like, some really... Like, the return scene, like, the returns. Yep. That is just pitch perfect in the Snyder Cut. And you watch the theatrical, and you're kind of like... Why did they think that was better? Like, what were you thinking?
Were you trying to ruin the movie?
And then that's why I feel like he's kind of owed something. So, like, when he had these negotiations, apparently, and people say it's about money, I think he just wanted a bit of a say in where they were going, so he didn't have to kind of go through something like that again.
It's very, very possible. So, what's your...
sorry, anyway.
No.
I'll run on forever.
What's your favorite version of Clark Kent?
Probably Tom Welling, if I actually think because the thing is with Superman, you've got all the different layers to him, aren't you? So, and he did 10 years as Clark. So,
if you could have one Kryptonian power, what would it be?
If I say flight, do I get the invulnerability with it, or do I just...
See, that's what I've kind of we've come to figure out is like. Well, you kind of need the invulnerability for the other powers to kind of work.
Yeah. If you went... You know in the Man of Tomorrow film, and it's based on the... what's that book? American Alien.
Yes.
Where he puts the goggles on and that. You probably would need to do that because you'd have bugs and all sorts flying into your eyes.
Well, it's like so many times when they have the Flash, like... He burns through his clothes and stuff till he learns how to, like, control his lightning and everything around him and everything, like... So it's just like, yeah. All right, here's a controversial question.
Okay.
For some reason, this question alone divides Superman fans. Trunks or no trunks?
I don't care. Either way.
I've come down to, in live action, I prefer no trunks because I think you can make it work. But, then they did, like, the Kingdom Come styled suit, and the trunks looked pretty good.
That's probably my second favorite ever live action Superman suit as well.
I think part of what helps that is not having the bright yellow belt.
Yeah, I probably agree. But then again, I think if you go back and watch the Superman Christopher Reeve, that suit still looks good considering it's like cloth or whatever.
Yeah.
Spandex. Yeah, I'm not fussed. I mean, if you ask me if there's something I really want, I'd rather have the S on the back of the cape.
See,
every time.
Now, would you want the gold S or like the black New 52 style?
I would not be fussed. I think if it was Superman and Lois, I'd have the gold, but for Henry Cavill, I'd probably have the black.
I can go with that.
On the red.
one of my favorite things they did in the New 52 is I liked that in one of the books, Jor-El takes off his cape and wraps Kal in it. So Superman's cape is Jor-El's cape.
Oh, I like that. That's
and
good.
then in Krypton, the series, they kind of gave a nod to where Seg's grandfather, so it'd be Kal's great-grandfather, has the black on the back of his cape. But yeah, I agree with that. Like, I would like to see on the back of the cape.
By the way, Krypton, they shouldn't have ended it. I love that. That was such a good show.
I had really hoped that they would do like they had done with Babylon, or not Babylon. Battlestar Galactica, and do like a TV movie or something to like wrap up.
Yeah, I've said that. Just finish it off. Give it a nice send off. Yeah.
Unless they want to like do a time travel plot for season 3 of Superman and Lois, and bring in Seg and kind of bring that in as background.
Lobo, Brainiac, bring them all. I mean, I think I would just canonize it. The only thing you need to do now is give Superman a cape with a S on the back to match up.
Which, what episode was it? There is an episode of Superman and Lois. If you watch it, I want to say it's like the first or second episode of this season. The camera pans, and there's a person like selling Superman merchandise.
Oh yeah.
And behind them is a cape with the yellow S on the back blowing.
I wanted all that merchandise.
So I'm like,
so many good things.
So I'm like, okay. So maybe at some point he had that cape, or he's gonna get it back. I don't know. In your stories, do you prefer the Kents alive or dead?
I actually prefer them alive, but if they're dead, they're dead. Yeah. But I think if I was rebooting Superman now, I would have them alive in the next one.
Yeah. I think for Superman and Lois's purpose, I think it works them being dead. I think that's...
Well, he's older as well, isn't he, in that? So.
And that's where we need to move him in the evolution of his character. Because in a lot of ways, this Superman is the farthest in life that we've seen,
Yeah, which is why he's gone back to Smallville, hasn't he? Because he's older and he's got a family and...
Exactly. But if we were doing a film or, something like that, alive. Now...
Yeah.
Something else that we share in common. We have children. And those children like a certain character named Scooby-Doo.
Yes.
Which is your favorite Scooby-Doo character?
Probably just Scooby. I just love Scooby-Doo. I used to like Scrappy-Doo as a kid until I found out as an adult everyone hated him. I was like, what?
You're like, yeah, I don't like that. What are you talking about?
Because he was the villain in the film, wasn't he? I remember thinking, why is Scrappy the villain? And everyone was like, because everyone hates Scrappy. And I'm like, did they? I didn't know this.
You're like, yeah, we do. Yeah, that's right. Scrap.
Well, it's funny because I remember watching those films when I probably was like a young teenager at the time, and I thought they were terrible. But watching them with my kids now, I actually think they're really good. Those they're not like great films, if you know what I mean. Like,
yeah,
the best written, but they're fun.
I like the second one better.
Yeah, the second one feels like what the first one should have been, doesn't it? Because it's like a mystery.
Yeah, it feels like
where the first one is real monsters. Yeah,
like it's an episode of Scooby-Doo with them grown up and all that. So yeah, it totally feels like it works.
I really want a Scooby-Doo and Superman because I get tired of watching these Scooby-Doo team up with everyone.
Thank you.
Guess who it was? Wonder Woman, Batman, and the Flash. I'm like, well, when's he going to team up with Superman?
And I wanted it voiced by Jason J. Lewis.
Oh yeah, that'd be good because he does a good voice. Yeah.
League Action, because the other voice actors were the League Action voice actors, and Justice League Action is a show that never quite got the love and attention it should.
Great show, yeah. I think they did so well to get those stories out in 10 minutes.
Yeah, they did. I mean, the show is great. It's one I actually bought on iTunes when it came out because I didn't have cable and I wanted to watch it with my kids. And yeah, my son was only like 1 or 2 at the time, but they're there. I have them to go back to.
They're perfect for this generation because I think kids nowadays, like, they don't have the attention span, I think, maybe we had when we were kids.
But it's so interesting because if you go back and watch old cartoons, they were shorts. Like 10
minutes.
That's
true, actually, yeah.
Like, my daughter loves watching old Bugs Bunny. She won't watch the new Bugs Bunny, but the old classic Bugs Bunny, she loves it.
Same with Tom and Jerry, though, and Tom and Jerry was hilarious. I mean, I think over here they kind of tried to ban it at one point, said it was really violent, but I'm like, it's cartoons.
Yeah.
We're going to fight.
Chill out. Also,
but yeah, there is supposed to be a Scooby-Doo and Krypton film coming, but I don't know what's happening with it because I've not heard anything for like a year.
Yes, you and I talked about that. It was supposed to be. I'm hoping.
Do you think they're waiting for this Super Pets film, man?
Yeah, I'm pumped for that movie. I can't wait to buy.
Yeah,
tickets
I can't wait. Yeah, I'm taking my kids to see it in summer holidays. So.
Exactly. Like, I can't wait. It's gonna be so nice to just. Like, I love when the trailer comes on, but yeah, I remember seeing that talked about, and I don't know, maybe it'll come out next year, because I mean, there for a while they were releasing 2 Scooby-Doo movies a year, and then the last Scooby-Doo movie they released, I bought it for the kids, and it was Scooby-Doo meets Courage the Cowardly Dog. I didn't really like it. Yeah. It's like
it wasn't very good, wasn't it? No.
It's the past few have not been that good.
I like the Halloween one.
I was about to say the Halloween one was good.
Yeah.
Because
it's funny because I forgot Elvira was in it, and my kids started talking about Elvira over there, and I'm like, how do you know who Elvira is? And they're like, how do you know Scooby-Doo? And I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm thinking, thank God.
yeah, you're like, okay, that way, good job. But I didn't, when they first did the Return to Zombie Island, I feel like that's when they started not being good.
Yeah, I got that for kids, but I hadn't actually watched it with them.
We watched it, and my kids, like, my daughter loves Scooby-Doo. She constantly watches Scooby-Doo. And that was one they watched once and did not like, and I was like, oh,
that's a shame.
And I'm like, dang it! But they love the Halloween one. Like, she'll watch it anytime.
Yeah.
And then there was like the Legend of the Sword, or like it's like King Arthurish. It wasn't bad. But and side note, I don't know why they haven't taken advantage and done a solo Hex Girls movie or the Hex Girls cartoon, because right there, those characters are awesome and perfectly primed to be more than just randomly appearing in Scooby-Doo. But we digress.
Maybe they will one day.
You had mentioned earlier you are a horror movie fan.
Big horror movie fan, yeah.
And you have
that's probably my second love.
You have a podcast, the Slasher Videocast.
Slasher Vidcast, yeah, but I've not done it for a while. I'll be honest, I kind of lost my passion a bit for podcasting for a while, and I thought I'm not going to go back to it till I really want to. So,
I understand.
But sorry, go on.
No, I understand that.
I think I will be rebranding it though, because I think I don't just want to talk about horror. So I think I might do a superheroes and slashers and have like I'll do an episode on the superheroes if I want to do an episode on superheroes, and do an episode on horror if I do it. Because horror really, for me, because of the kids and stuff, I don't get to watch it much. I used to, but around October time, I tend to try and absorb as much as I can, because obviously I love Halloween. So
do we. I got my kids watching the old classic Universal movies with me last year.
Cool.
You know, like they took to those. You know, they love the Hotel Transylvania movies.
Yeah, they're fun. I mean, I showed my kids the Goosebumps movie, and because I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah, I bought
with
that
Jack Black
last year. Yeah, I bought both of them last year and watched.
Yeah,
I
thought the second one was alright as well. It's a shame they're not doing a third, but I heard they're supposed to be doing a new series, but then I've not heard of it. That was like 2 years ago or something.
Yeah, isn't it Netflix or Disney Plus? I feel like it's one like that kind of surprised me that's doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love Goosebumps as a kid, so I was.
I showed my kids some of the old episodes. It's so hilarious to watch.
Yeah, they're not aged well. They were acting and stuff.
But you know, I'm with you. Like, I enjoy good like horror. Like, I'm not like I'm not on board with everything that comes out. Like, I'm not one of those.
No,
people.
I'm not, I mean, I like slashers. Like, I love Jason, Michael, Freddy. I don't tend to like. I don't like Saw and stuff like that. It just doesn't do it for me.
Mine comes like I'm picky about it, but yeah, with the kids and stuff, it always seems like when the kids aren't around, that's what I end up watching, because I'm like, that's the stuff I never can watch when they are around.
Yeah.
So when my wife's like, "What do you want to watch?" I'm like, "This." She's like, "Why?" I'm like, "Because the kids aren't here." And then last year is I saw that you also had a channel about being a filmmaker. Can you tell us about that?
Oh, so me and my brother used to make films. Well, we still do some. We haven't done it for a while because COVID kind of put us on back burner. But funnily enough, I was chatting to him about doing a horror for October, so I might be doing something new soon. That's the Marshall Brothers one, yeah.
I watched your A Revenge to Die For.
That was right. I had nothing to do with that. That was my brother. He did all that by himself. Yeah, because that's him. That's him in the film. That's my brother.
Because I was like going through. I was like, "Oh, this looks cool," and I watched that.
We did a mixtape one called Shablam, which is like a Shazam thing.
Nice. I'll watch that. I'll look at that.
It's like 30 seconds long or something. It's not even long. It's so funny. Well, I think it's funny. Probably into you.
Hey, that's what matters, right? So, the other part of the podcast here is we're talking and we're reviewing the Superman. I always get the name. It's Superman, Lois, and Clark.
Yeah. Have you tried to search for this online? Because it's like the fifth thing that comes up, and I'm like, that's what the book's called.
Yeah, it's because it first comes up as Superman and Lois, then Lois and Clark, and you're like, ah.
Yeah.
And you're like, I'm typing it incorrectly. I can't help it that you people have it wrong. So this is the book, and it's a good book, but it's interesting because this was the book that introduced the character of Superman that spun out of Convergence. And
yeah, I've not read Convergence. Yeah,
I haven't read it in a while, and I reread Convergence Superman issue 1 and 2 because that deals with the birth of John Kent. And basically, at the end of Convergence, there's these people these characters that are surviving, and it's basically the post-crisis Superman.
Yeah, which is my Superman. Yeah,
and he and his wife are sent back to the crisis. They stop the crisis or something, and then he ends up basically on the Earth at the New 52. And they live in the background because they recognize the differences of the world. So they're on the New 52 Earth, kind of living in the background, taking new identities and raising their son, John. That's kind of the background because, eventually, as this book happens, and then right when this book ends is where this Superman appears in the last few issues of the New 52.
Yeah.
And then into Rebirth. Yeah,
I've read some of Rebirth. I haven't actually read the story where... I suppose we can do spoilers, can we?
Yeah. We're spoiler filled. This book's been out since 2016, and Rebirth happened in 2016.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not a regular comic reader. Like, I read a lot of graphic novels. I don't tend to go. But I did try and start collecting when the New 52 started. And I really liked that first Action Comics run of Superman. But then I got kind of bored of, the New 52, and then I came back when I heard about this because this is my Superman.
Yeah.
But I never read the story where that Superman died. Did he ever come back after that, or did he just stay dead?
Okay, so let me give you some background, okay? Because this is something we talk about. Because what happens is how retcon comics work.
Yeah.
Is how Dr. Manhattan played a role in creating the New 52.
Was that in Doomsday Clock?
Yeah, it's in Doomsday Clock, hinted at in Rebirth, and then Doomsday Clock.
Yeah.
And then, of course, if you follow the patterns, Doomsday Clock came out later than it should have because it should have made more of an impact than it did, but it's whatever.
Didn't it keep getting delayed or something? Oh.
Yeah, it got delayed, significantly. That's
one of my favorite comic books.
I want to reread it all the way through, and I haven't done
the
it.
Superman, the issue, you know which one I'm talking about, right? The main. That is the best Superman thing I might have ever read. It was so good.
So basically, pre-crisis or post-crisis, Superman is basically Superman Blue. He's the blue energy of Superman, and the New 52 Superman is the red energy of Superman.
Oh wow! So they brought that back.
And so what happens is when he dies, his energy goes into Lana, and she becomes Superwoman for a while, and then I think she ended up dying. Or lost the power, or whatever.
I was like, you're cursed if you got Superman red.
But what happens is Mrs. Pitalik, you find out he was messing around with stuff, and he was the one in Rebirth posing as Clark Kent.
Yeah, I do know about that, because I think I was following stuff about that, yeah.
And then he starts changing things, and you have John trying to, with his parents, trying to talk to him, and they don't remember him. And then what happens is the red energy is there, and it combines with the Superman and basically upscales his powers, but that's kind of part of in Rebirth that kind of solidifies everything. So the New 52 existed and all the old stuff existed. All of it existed. All of it counts. However that works in comics. You know how comics go.
Yeah.
But that was kind of the thing, and then after that, it's because you did the Superman Reborn storyline, and that's when he gets the costume that I really like, where it's all blue with the red boots.
I think I've read that one.
And he's got the red belt with the yellow shield on, like and that was the whole story of the whole what they did there and kind of retconning so that everything happened. And then recently, I bring this up just because I think it all ties into our story, is, with the Superman Son of Kal-El book, which is, one of the worst things that Bendis ever did was he aged up John.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
And I have a quick story about that I'll tell you in a second, is, it kind of retcons John being born in the fortress and kind of takes out the convergence angle and everything. Because, in the story we're about to talk about, John's 8 years old, okay? I think, roughly. He's like roughly 8-ish, I think. And then he gets aged up somehow, because this all happens, and then when things happen and when Rebirth starts, he's like 11. And I really like John at this age.
Me too, yeah.
I'm enjoying Superman Son of Kal-El, but I liked seeing Superman as a father. And I had the privilege of, I have my Convergent Superman #1 and my Superman Lois and Clark #1 are both signed by Dan Jurgens.
Oh, wow.
And I had the honor of getting to meet Dan Jurgens and talk to him. And, one of the big things was you could tell just in his tone as him and I were talking, he didn't like what they had done with John. Because he talked about, wanting to write more stories at John at that age. And, Peter Tomasi even came back and did another round of the Super Sons with younger John.
Yeah, I read some of that. It's really good, that stuff, yeah.
And I really enjoyed that. And like I said, the Son of Kal-El stuff's great, but I loved kind of identifying with Superman because, in a way, all right, it was 2015 is when Convergence happened. Superman became a father in the comics the same year that I became a father. And now reading this book this time, like, my son's 7 and, John's roughly 8 in this book. And, I see things in my kids, and I liked reading the stories and kind of, seeing that kind of parable of Superman as a dad with a young child. And there was such a spark of hope, and now, they've taken that away from him. And it makes me sad.
No, I agree. I mean, I've read some of Rebirth, and when I found out that they aged him up, I think I've got the story where he goes off with Jor-El. That was Bendis, right? Or did that one?
That was at the very end, because you can tell.
Yeah.
When Bendis,
which I didn't think was a bad book, but Superman was a bit miserable throughout the book.
When
he obviously missing his family.
His Man of Steel, which is, I don't know why he had to rename it that.
That's what it was called, Man of Steel, yeah.
Yeah, it was a cash grab. They kind of used that book to wrap up what they were doing. Because you can tell, that book is so much of, quickly going over what was still the Oz Effect story. They wrapped it up in that book so that Bendis could start fresh with his Superman run. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about a good book by Dan Jurgens.
True, yeah.
So,
do you reckon the creators of Superman and Lois had to have read this book? Because I do.
I think they had to. Because I feel
so similar in it when you just cut it down to its core or whatever. You think
it's an 8-issue book, which is interesting because I feel like usually these type of books are 6 issues.
Yeah,
but it's an 8-issue book. It's a good read. I love the art. I love the black suit. I've never been a big fan of the black suit as far as in the Death of Superman, but I like this black suit.
The only thing I don't like about the Death of Superman one is it goes right low down. That's weird. I don't like that about it. But I mean, I love the black suit in the Snyder Cut.
Yeah, because that one I'm okay with. But
I like the Tyler Hoechlin Elseworlds and
yes,
he wore it as the evil. I like that suit as well. I think it's a lot better than the old suit he had, the red and blue. But
okay, here's what's crazy about that suit to me. Okay, I'm going to go on a tangent. The base suit is the exact same suit he was wearing in Supergirl at the time. But the black suit, they gave him a collar, which I really liked the collar.
It really suited him, yeah.
And they gave him better boots, because I hate the boots and belt of his Superman suit on Supergirl.
Yeah.
And then let's flash forward to Superman and Lois now. I like his suit, except I don't like that his symbol is not 3D. It's not popped.
Yeah.
And I don't like the shoulders, because I don't like the high neck on it.
No, I don't either. I don't understand the choice. That's the Flasher suit. I think is the best suit on the new.
I like that suit. I don't know if I'd want it to be my permanent suit, but I did really like it.
Well, you couldn't, could you? Because it's like spandex in it. So.
But the boots on that look great, and like his new boots this season look good, and his boots last season look good. But I like, the blue suit itself, and I like the belt. But it's just the chest, shoulder, neck area. I'm like, ugh.
I think they should have spent a bit more time getting that suit right, because I feel like they over padded it in season 1 at times, and now it kind of looks like it's kind of sagging downwards a bit.
And I understand it. Maybe they over padded it because they had to start shooting, COVID, post-COVID, or not post, but you know what I mean. Like, I mean,
he's not. He's in good. He's always been in good shape. And Tyler Hoechlin, he's not.
Yeah, and
even when he was slim, he was still like muscular.
But it also helps because with the padding, when they make the stunt suits, it doesn't look that different.
True.
But there's also
probably helps with harnesses and things, doesn't it? So.
But there's also shots of him, like the suit look like it changed throughout season 1. Like they took out some of the padding as the season went on. So I don't know, but that's a side note. But let's get into this book.
Sorry, I told you I go on tangents.
Oh no, I can go on tangents all day. I try to stay focused.
This book, though, the cover, that's one of my... If I could have that like in a frame, that would be like a great cover to... Is it Lee Weeks who drew this?
I believe it
is, right?
So. Yes.
Yeah. That cover is one of them. And that, like I said, that black suit is just phenomenal.
Now, do you have this... Are you looking at this in a digitally, issue by issue, or in a trade?
No, I've got the trade right next to me.
Okay.
I'm copping it right now. There you go.
All right. So, I have the individual issues, but I have to pull the first issue up on my computer because my signed copy's framed over on the side.
Oh wow! Yeah, we don't remember that one.
Yeah, I was like, I got the figure of this Superman, the black suit from this, over on my shelf, so I have a little that figure.
I didn't know you could get a figure of it. I might have to try and have a look at that.
I'll send you a picture here in a few.
Oh, nice, yeah.
But all right, do you want to just go issue by issue?
Whatever is best for you, and whatever you want to do.
All right. So,
sure.
What I like about this story. It's like I love that it starts out kind of giving us a history. It's talking about how recapping how they showed up on this Earth, like we said, and how the New 52 Superman and the Justice League were battling Darkseid, and how he was there in the background and he almost joined in, but he didn't because it wasn't his Earth and he had to let them do their thing, and how him and Lois, it's history a little bit about the whole convergence and where they came from, like I just talked about, and it's Lois talking about Clark puts away the suit and they're building a life, and they have their son John who's growing up. They're on a farm in California, probably Northern California by the looks of it.
If you didn't know, you could just think it was Smallville, really, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, you could. And then we see that Clark has this black suit and a beard because he's trying to keep a low profile and not be known. And they adopt the last name of White, which I think is cool because it's like Perry White's kind of like the third father figure to them.
Yeah.
And then when you look at they name Jonathan Samuel White, technically right here. Which I like. But on a side note, I hate in comics where superheroes have kids and they name their kids after their parents.
I know what you mean, yeah.
I hate that his name is Jonathan Kent, but you call him John Kent. Okay, you have to be very specific. Jonathan is the father or the grandfather. John is the grandson or son.
I get what you're saying, yeah.
It's like on The Flash, like he had a daughter, he names her Nora. I'm like, seriously, why? Like, make it, give your child their own identity, okay, and then use your mother's name as their middle name.
Yeah.
No, I would never name my kid after me. No. They get their own
No,
name.
I didn't want to. I mean, my eldest, his middle name's Clark, funnily enough, which is obviously after Superman.
Nice.
And my youngest, his middle name's Alexander, after Lex, because even though obviously they're enemies,
yeah,
I always think back to Smallville when they were friends, and I'm like...
My wife wanted to name our child when we were talking when we were having our first child, and she's like, Luther Alexander. And I looked at her and said, no.
Sorry.
No.
I'll do that again.
I just think it's hilarious. So, all the beginning is just kind of set up. We're getting used to their life, what Lois is doing. She's writing a book. John's going to school, and Clark's going out in the world as this Superman, and we find out the
Isn't
Excalibur.
the first thing he does is rescue Henshaw?
Yes.
Yeah.
He saves Hank Henshaw, the Excalibur, and he knows, he debates whether or not he should actually, interfere or not. And he does, because he knows what happened to Henshaw before. And then the issue ends where Jonathan's like watching it on his phone. You can clearly see the way the character is done, that Jonathan has a strong journalistic instinct like his parents.
Yeah.
He inherited that from his parents.
Do you like me though? Always kind of think of like Lois is more the reporter. She's the more, that's like her thing in it. She's the reporter. I feel like.
I think she's better than Clark. I think Clark's a good reporter.
Yeah.
He would have to be, and that's why, I don't really like the Chris Reeve Clark Kent. Because it's like he's trying too hard. The point of Clark is for him to blend in, not stick out. And his Clark sticks out way too much. And also, if he was that bumbling and everything, he wouldn't be that effective of his job, because people wouldn't want to talk to him.
No.
They wouldn't trust him, as their, protect him as a source. He just would never come off as being serious. So I've never really loved his Clark Kent.
No, I agree with you, and I actually really like Henry Cavill's Clark Kent in Batman vs Superman, because especially in the Ultimate Cut, because you actually get to see him.
There is no other cut. What are you talking about?
I feel like he in those Clark Kent scenes get really overlooked in Batman vs Superman as well. But you can kind of see how he's kind of like his Clark is just kind of like, he's almost reminds me a bit more of the Birthright Clark, where he's kind of like people kind of forget he's there. He doesn't really. It's funny because Henry Cavill stands out, but I feel like as Clark he doesn't. He kind of just mingles in, and I feel like that scene where you see him go to Gotham and stuff, and actually be a reporter, and that's some of the best reporting Clark Kent I think I've ever had in live action. I think I prefer my Clark more like that. In fact, I actually think the best Clark is probably on Lois and Clark.
I love Lois and Clark, and I really like the little differences of the Clark that we see on Superman and Lois.
Yeah. Tyler's I think Tyler is kind of like an amalgamation of 7 different versions, and he kind of takes little bits from each of them. And I don't think he's necessarily intentional, because I know Tyler's not watched a lot of the previous Superman stuff, or so he claims anyway. And I feel like he kind of reminds me of I'll just bear over here. No. Friday the 13th, Derek Mears. I don't know if you know, he played Jason in the remake.
And then also played Swamp Thing for our DC fans.
He did. Yes, there you go. It all comes back to DC. I feel he was kind of fortunate in a way, but I don't mean that's a bad thing, but kind of like, because he got to come after everyone else. So he could kind of take all the best pieces.
Yes.
And I feel like he was the same in that role. I think Tyler's absolutely amazing as Superman. I think his Clark's better than his Superman, personally. But I think his Superman's great as well.
I've said that I feel like in a lot of ways he's the greatest hit Superman. in the way that the writers took each version of the character, wrote what they liked about that characterization, and then found out a way to put that into their scripts and stories, and they've been able to just put it all in a blender and make this version.
Well, I think in the... Sorry, I'm going on tangents again, but I think in the crossover stuff, I think his first 2 appearances on Supergirl were perfect. I think they absolutely nailed the writing. I think after that, they didn't quite hit it right. They did some poor decisions, in my opinion.
I think after that, the problem is they couldn't have him overshine her. It was her show.
But don't you think that they already did that in the first 2 episodes?
And that's the thing, is like he came in for that, and it was like, okay, cool. But then people liked him. They wanted it back, and they gave us more.
Yeah.
But they're like, well, we can't have him do too much stuff to overshow everybody. So he came, because we did, right before Superman and Lois premiered, we did like a look back where we watched every appearance that he did in the Arrowverse and talked about like the character. And that was kind of what we came to, was they had to put him in the background. They couldn't have him be too good up front.
I think there's ways of writing it, though. Like, I think the way they wrote him in those first 2 episodes, I don't think he did overshadow her. I think he was kind of like a bit of a... It was exciting to see him because it was the first time he'd seen him on it, but I feel like they did a good job making him more equals, and after that I kind of felt like they just kept putting him down. And,
I'm with you. I'm with you. Like, and
I almost feel like Elseworlds almost got him back on the good trajectory, but then they kind of messed it up again towards the end. And then Crisis, I just think he might as well not have been in Crisis.
Crisis was fun to have him, but they gave, Brandon Routh his time to shine because they knew that he was getting his own show.
I mean, the Superman fighting, that was great, but I just would have liked to have seen him, because they knew he was getting his own show when they did that, so why didn't they just kind of make him stand out a little bit more?
Because they knew he would when they had, it was the swan song of Brandon, and they knew what they were about to do.
I guess so, yeah.
And everyone was going to lose their mind.
Got rid of Brandon in like 3 seconds, didn't they? I was like, come on!
Oh, I know, it sucked. It made me upset, because it was like...
But yeah, I think Superman and Lois is kind of... This is one of the reasons I'm kind of reluctant for it to be in the Arrowverse, even though it kind of technically is. I feel like they should keep the connections tentative and not really go all out with them. I've said if Superman's going to be in a crossover, he should go on The Flash. I don't think anyone should be coming over to his show. I think it'd be jarring as well, tonally, just the way it's filmed and stuff.
Oh yeah, it's definitely has a higher caliber.
But they're obviously going to answer the question, aren't they, next week, I think they said.
Yeah, when the finale is next week, yeah. And,
see what they say.
We could go on so many thoughts right here. I'm just like... and then we could... Yeah. Anyways.
Sorry, probably did a bad thing getting me on for a review. We should have started soon.
Yeah. That's how we roll, people. But in issue 2, and like I said, we don't have to go super hard in every issue of the book. Like, the first one's such an introductory that we had touched on. But the second issue, I like how each issue starts a little bit in the past. It's Lois narrating
the
again,
flashbacks, yeah.
And she's talking about the farm that they're living on. And, we see young John, and we see Clark, and he doesn't really have his suit yet in the flashback, and he doesn't have a beard. And John's probably about 2. And then we go back to the shuttle. And then we have John at school. He gets in trouble because some people say these classmates are taunting him. And then Lois picks him up and he starts, questioning, asking his mom questions, and she's trying to dance around it. And then they're attacked by inner gang thugs. And she's like, we don't see what happens, but she comes around and John's standing over this dude with a lead pipe. And she tells him,
that would sound like that, yeah.
She tells him to run, and she's like, Dad will come, and he's kind of like, what? And this is one of my favorite 2-3 kind of pages of Superman right here, is where you see them running, and then you see this guy, like on his phone, say, I'll call in her license plates to see, and then boom, you see his face smashed. And then you see these guys walking, and then one disappears on top of it, and then comes up.
Do you know what it reminds me of? Sorry.
If you say the Velociraptors attacking in the high grass in Jurassic World, yes.
I wasn't going to say that, actually. I was going to say Batman Begins, where he first comes out as Batman in the docks.
Oh,
because he's just taking people out, and they don't know what's going on. And Reminds me of that a little bit.
Oh, I agree. I just like...
That's my favourite Batman film, by the way, if you wanted to know that answer.
Mine too. Actually, it's mine too. Like, I like... this is how we do it, people. I love Batman Forever because it just hit me the right time as a child. Like, I had a bad experience with Batman Returns, and that's a whole other story I've talked about many times.
Oh, okay.
And Batman Forever just hit me at the right time. You know, I was 10, my brother was 7.
It's underrated, Batman Forever, I think.
It's such an interesting talk and debate of a story. And I just think that as a Batman film, origin, pure Batman, that Batman Begins is my favorite and the best.
Yeah,
I
was really excited for that film as well, like before it came out.
I like The Batman.
I didn't like that one, but
there's things in it that I feel like the cut that was in theaters should have been the director's cut. I think it's
very long.
I think he could have snipped and everything a little bit and made a little bit more of a faster paced and cut out certain things in that film. Because, you know, I'm not saying everything has to be made for kids, but kids are going to want to see it.
I know what you're saying, yeah.
Kids are going to want to see it. You're making toys and merchandise for them. Give them a movie that they can watch.
And
then release, you know, a longer version on on Blu-ray or streaming.
I totally get it. I think they should have done that for that Birds of Prey movie. I think that film would have been a lot better if they'd just cut out a bit of violence.
Right. Like, that movie makes me so mad. Because it should have never been rated R.
Yeah.
Because you have...
Stupid decision.
Because everything that's in that movie that's rated R is a snip here and a twip there.
Yeah.
And I actually edited a version of that movie for my daughter. Because she loved Harley. And so when it came out, I bought it, and I ripped it, and I edited it, and have a version for my daughter to watch.
That's good. I think that's really good. I actually really like that film. I think it gets a lot of flack, but I think it's quite a fun little movie.
I like it, but at the same time, there's parts of it that just... It cheapens itself by jumping around in time, because it lets you get away with different things. And it's a budgetary saver, much like the first Deadpool movie.
100%, yeah. I think there was a cooler way to make the film. I will totally agree. I think they should have had some proper costumes in it for a start, but don't get me started. I'll go.
Yeah.
I actually think, you know, you were about editing. Actually, I want to set someone a challenge up. Sorry, I just did have a tangent here. The Snyder Cut. I want somebody to make like a 2.5-hour version of it, just to see if it could be done.
Oh yeah,
and make sense.
Yeah,
because
I think
if you think about what would have come out in 2017 if they had the 2-hour mandate and all that other palaver stuff, there might have been a version that would be like a more accessible version for like young people and stuff and moviegoers.
I would say 2:45.
Yeah, I think you'd have to do it probably 2:45. Yeah,
and I think because like each film got a little bit longer, like Man of Steel and then BVS.
I love those 4 hours for me, but
yeah, for a good theatrical run, yeah. But I think Birds of Prey should have never been rated R. It was the wrong movie to try to do that for. Yeah, we could keep going, but back to the book. Henshaw, John is listening to his parents outside, and then we get a backup page about someone light years away on another planet. Dum dum dum.
Quick question: when you first read this, did you think that was Maxima? Because I totally did when I first read it.
I thought it was a backup story the first time I read it. Like that was like a different story. Like I didn't realize it was actually tying into it.
There was anything to do. All right, okay.
I was like, oh, what's this? Okay, and then I kind of just brushed it off, and then because like when this came out, I think they were several issues into it before I actually understood what it was, and then I went out.
Oh, okay.
And I got it, and I got all the issues to catch up.
Yeah, I waited till it had ended and just dived into it straight away then.
What happened was I understood what it was doing, and I read the first one because a friend of mine had it, and then I loved it so much, I was like, I gotta buy this. I gotta get into it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, anymore when there's short runs like this, I've kind of got to the point where I wait and buy the trade because I know I'm going to enjoy it much more.
I think I prefer this kind of story as well. I'm not really into like the whole, I can't bother to keep up with the continuity and stuff. I rather would read like these kind of like
I agree.
contained stories.
I agree.
So.
It's so much easier to, hey, here's a great... Like, even this one that teeters on having stuff that you should know before and after, it does a
good job of filling you in.
Yes,
doesn't it?
that's what I'm about to say. It does
a
great job of filling you in enough that you can really understand what happened. This issue, number 3, has a new character, Blank.
Christopher Lambert from
That
Kombat.
is like the first super villain that this Superman actually gets to take on, because he says he has telekinetic powers and telepathic, and he was never on the other Earth, and he talks about where he had to put him, and he puts him in his fortress, his place of being. And then that was all in the flashback, and then we come up to Clark did, he searched the Intergang stuff. Their Intergang didn't know who they exactly were meeting. They just know they were going after who they thought might be the Author X.
That's right, yeah. I'm just thinking they didn't actually know who she was, did they? They just assumed she was Author X, yeah.
Because they followed
You're still right, to be fair.
Yeah, because they followed her car and Clark, they have a new car. John comes out, and they try to talk to him about, hey, that was something's going on. We talked to the police. Don't say anything to anybody. And then he's getting on his bus, and Lois says, you trust him to ride the bus? If you're wrong about Intergang, and Clark says, I'll just follow. And we see him, get down to a suit and take off flying. And then the next page is him saying, he followed the bus to school, and then he goes to his fortress, which is like a makeshift fortress. And there's a cool line he talks about having to build it himself and not having the advantage of Kryptonian technology. And it's neat to see, he's still doing his thing here. And what we find out is Henshaw is taken over mentally by Blank, trying to free Blank. Blank gets free. He gets Henshaw to free him, and then we meet Bruno Mannheim, who kills his 2 thugs. Who failed to take care of Author X. And then once again, we get our backup page of this person crossing the galaxy looking for something. And I'm with you. At this one, I was like, oh, that's Maxima. Because it has...
I was convinced, yeah.
It has that Maxima feel. Oh, yeah.
It was cool to see a Dominator as well. I do like the Dominators.
Yes. Oh, crap. And then issue 4. Let me get over here in my book. I gotta take them all out one at a time.
This is the one where they go to Metropolis, right?
Yeah. At the beginning, they're in Metropolis as several years ago, and there's the saxophone player who recognizes Clark's voice, and we see it's their anniversary, and they buy a Superman T-shirt for John. And Clark kind of smiles and talks about the symbol being different. He's like, I like mine better. And she says, this is the only Superman John knows. And then they almost see Jimmy Olsen. Well, they see him. They kind of have to...
Yeah, they kind of have to she puts a hood up, doesn't she, and they kind of duck away.
Yeah, so Jimmy doesn't see him. And they would be a little older than the, Clark and Lois of this world. And
well, that does come back, doesn't it, in Rebirth when she... didn't she try and take the place of her, and she's worried because she looks a bit older, yeah?
Yes. And that was that's why you had that first Rebirth story. And then when they do Reborn, it kind of makes everything work out. Hunky-dory.
Yeah. As always.
Yeah, it's kind of like in the comics, now is we're still, the fallout from Bendis revealing Clark to the world, and it's will we eventually get back to
get me started.
When will we get back to the status quo of Clark having a secret identity, which I like. I don't like everyone knowing. I mean, it is a fun...
It doesn't work, does it? I think if you're in, the Legion of Superheroes time, it's absolutely fine by then, but it's like when you watch that Elseworld, we're talking about when Clark's talking to Kara and she's talking about not revealing her identity, because I think the president wanted to know it or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, the identity is the keep our loved ones safe and stuff, and in fact, that's what I know about Supergirl. They made a big deal out of keeping her identity there, then 2 seasons later or whatever, took it away, didn't they?
Okay, I'm on record. I hated this finale of Supergirl. It didn't feel.
I stopped watching after like season 4 because I thought it just got terrible.
I had to go on through, man. Like we had to finish it for the podcast. Like that's where we started, but I hated how it ended. It didn't feel like a series ending. It felt like a season finale to start a new season with an interesting plot, and I did not like it.
But they totally did the Bendis. I mean, I had a lot of issues with that show. I won't go into me because I don't want to annoy any fans. But
he's like, I don't want to be here for another hour and a half, dude.
Yeah.
Bendis.
Let's not get started on, but let's just pretend they don't exist.
My thing, if that had been in a graphic novel, Elseworld story, yeah, sure. But for the main continuity, it just bothers me because
it serves no purpose.
I understand the point of they're trying to make in the story, but at the same time, like it's too difficult because there's a lot of stuff you would think that would be happening they don't write in the story. But yeah, anyways, we have Lois and dropping things off to her editor for her book, and we realize that it was a setup, and she has John with her, and the inner gang is there to get a look at her, and she runs into Bruno Mannheim. Meanwhile, Clark's in the fortress fighting, and there's a lot of interesting dialogue in this about him. He's not as powerful as he was, and he doesn't know why.
Yeah. They mentioned something. Is it the sun daughter or something? Is it because of the sun's different or something? Oh.
That's one of his theories, and I don't remember if that's brought up
played off. Did they ever kind of solve it? Or
in Reborn, everything gets solved. Everything gets solved.
I mean, did they ever explain it? Sorry, or was it just one of them things that kind of?
I don't know.
Let's pretend that didn't happen.
And that's the thing is, like, I'm kind of in the mood to do a Rebirth reread just because I love the stories with Superman and John. So, but we have
supposed to bring the Eradicator back in there as another Eradicator. So,
yes. So Superman's fighting Blanc, and then he's out. He's free. He's talking about how he has to get to California to go after the woman and child, and then we're on the 6th moon of Jupiter.
So I was going to say, whenever I hear the woman, I always think of Superman fall, but woman. With Nuclear Man.
Nuclear Man. Destroy Superman.
I want him to come back in Superman and Lois because I think they can completely redeem that character.
Yeah. I think I want the next season of Superman
outfit,
and Lois to be... I want them to figure out something... I want a couple of the characters to just disappear because I'm tired of them. And I want
the cushions.
Yep, you knew exactly what I was saying. I haven't watched the newest episode that just aired because I always watch it with my wife.
It was really good. I'll just say that much.
And that's what I heard, and I'll watch it tonight when my wife gets home. But yeah, I'm done with the Cushings. I really don't like what they've done with those characters.
I don't think they've been written well all this season, especially Sarah. Is just like she's
Sarah's
like Lana in Smallville.
Sarah's
just
horrible.
get fed up of her.
Sarah just turned horrible, and Kyle turned horrible.
Yeah, he did that.
And I'm just like, wow. This is how we're going to chat, people. We're going to go in between issues. We'll talk about whatever else pops up. Issue number 5. Oh, you don't have to apologize. This one's cool because it has Batman on the cover, and it talks about how, in the flashback, Clark talks about almost revealing himself to Batman because he knows it's not his Batman, but he talks about just needing a friend, and he felt like he.
You're telling me Batman don't know that he helped him? He knows someone was there, doesn't he? Because he's not stupid.
And it's John's 5th birthday, and he has his Superman shirt on. And then we're back in the modern time where he's fighting with Blanc. And Blanc trying to reach out to Lois, and we see Clark show up. And I love the "no, you don't." He punches him, and he just keeps fighting with him. And Lois is on the phone. She's yelling for Clark. Clark's getting the crap beat out of him, but Henshaw, the hold that Blanc had on Henshaw is released, and Henshaw gets in one of the ships that's inside the fortress and blasts.
Yeah, that was cool.
Blanc. And Clark grabs him and puts him back in his cell. And we see that there are other people that are in the fortress in cells. But not because they're prisoners or they're bad. It's because that's the only way they're able to live. And it's interesting because we don't ever follow up. I think with
really.
I don't think we ever do. I don't remember.
See that to me was the whole Mon-El Legion of Superheroes. With the Phantom Zone. It reminded me of that.
Yes. Don't even get me started on Mon-El in Supergirl.
Oh no, his name's not supposed to be Mon-El. That's
His name is not actually supposed to be Mon-El. That's a name that Superman gave to him because
it makes no sense.
Why would his name be L? Stupid. Right?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make any sense at all, does it? But
Stupid
never
writers.
mind. At least at least in real life those two got together and he kind of helped her out, didn't he? Because she was in a bad relationship and stuff.
Yes.
So silver lining. That's my silver lining I take from that. Because I think, even though I'm not a big fan of that show, I really do like Melissa Benoist and a lot of the cast. To be honest, I think they're nice people. It's just I don't really like the way they were written.
They just got to a point where it's one of those things you run to a show where you don't want to really get rid of actors and you don't know what to do with characters. They serve
that was
their
a prime
point,
example, yeah.
and you can't change. You can only change up so much, and I feel like that's what happened. But whatever.
And that's why Supergirl became like a background character in her own show after a few seasons, didn't she? Because anyway, sorry, I'm doing it again.
Nope, you're fine. They should have gotten rid of Dreamer. I feel is a character that served her purpose, and then they just kept her around too long.
And I really like, Nicola Maine. She's lovely, but it's just that character. I did not like that character at all. It was just like,
and even Brainy, like when they eventually changed and he got his true
when
Brainy
it looked better,
look.
yeah.
So in the end of the issue, there's a guy getting out of prison that they come to him and they want a television show called America's Favorite Badass.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
weird. Yeah.
Basically, they're going to put him in a mech suit and let him tear stuff up.
I feel sorry for this guy.
I mean,
set him up, don't they?
I agree. Like, I was just reading this, like, oh yeah, because I like how there's not exactly one through villain in this. There's like little obstacles in each issue.
Yeah.
Like we had Blank in 2 episodes. We have this mystical woman. We have the Henshaw here that Clark drops off on the island, and him and Henshaw make up a story. He's got part of this jewel that she's looking for, and then when Clark goes back, inner gang. Lois tells her about the inner gang incident, and then John finds Superman's shirt.
A big shocked face. He's like,
and so.
Did that Blanc ever come back after this, or was it?
Not that I can remember.
Right. Maybe Christopher Lambert threatened to sue.
He's like, hey, I didn't know I was in your book.
Maybe some money.
And then issue 6 starts with a really great a flashback to what happened in the New 52 when Lois Lane outs Clark as Superman in the New 52 during the Truth.
Which I didn't like. I don't like that decision either, but that's neither here nor there, I guess.
I understood why they did it because he was being threatened and this villain was going to do it anyways, so they just got ahead of it. And
fair enough. I didn't actually know the history of it, so there you go. Now you've explained it, I can understand it.
And that's why Lois did it, and then whatever. And then we have these great things of Clark flying around using his super hearing and like the different ways it's depicting him trying to focus in on Lois's publisher's phone ringing.
Yeah.
And he eventually finds it, and then we see John's at school. He stayed after school, and he's working on a paper on Superman. And we get another great action scene of Superman flying in, beating up the bad guys, and taking off to save. He saved the lady, the publisher.
Yeah, what's her name? I'm terrible with names.
I know too many, and that's where I get lost. Chorus phone. And then we see the guy on the bridge for America's Badass. And the bridge traffic was supposed to be stopped, and the bridge was supposed to be done, and he's tearing it up, but then there's cars that are coming, and people are falling.
He assumes it's a stuntman.
And I'm just like, what the heck? And then, meanwhile, back at John's school, Inner Gang kidnaps him, and Clark gets caught up trying to save the bridge and the people and stop Mr. Badass, while John and Lois are tied up and going to be set on fire, left to burn in a shed. And John, we get a very intense shot of a mom and a daughter who's in a car that's sinking.
Yeah.
And then we see the producer for America National Badass or whatever finds out they never blocked the road that they were supposed to. And John starts to have a breakdown on how his parents have lied to him. They've been holding something out, that he's heard them talking. And he breaks the ropes. He snaps the ropes, and they're standing there. And then on the next page is when we get our first... Which I thought this was the end of the book, because it's like a one-page splash page of Hyathus.
Yeah.
High Penella.
Has she ever come back?
I don't think so.
Right.
Of Alistair, and she wants the Oblivion Stone. And she comes into Henshaw and this government agent. And I thought it was the end of the book, and I was like, oh, man. And then I turned the page, and nope, there's Superman battling the guy in the armor.
Yeah, that does actually feel like the end of the
And here's what I'm trying to figure out: if Superman ever saved that mom and daughter that were drowning.
He doesn't. Does he not in the next?
He does. Yeah, he does.
Oh, right. Okay.
You don't see it exactly. You just see the car come out of the water, and you just assume.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Did you notice in this issue where we got like 2 Superman Returns references? It was flying and hit listing.
Yeah.
Which I always love whenever you see that. And then there's the thing with the kid, with the powers, like, because he kind of did that, didn't he?
It's much better in this.
Yeah, he didn't chuck a piano.
Where I love that, Lois goes for the door, the fire's too hot, and John's like, doesn't feel hot to me. And she's like,
because it's Superman Returns.
And he's like, I can do this. And she's like, this can only mean one thing, and then that's the end of the book. And I was like,
yeah,
threw me for a loop.
I was going to say, in Superman Returns, he can throw a piano, but then when he comes to opening the door, he just can't do it. I'm like, come on, you're in danger now.
Yeah, he's like, oh, I'm out of power now, Mom. I'm sorry.
Battery's not included.
Sorry, Mommy. I'm completely a waste. And then, let's see. The next book, it starts several years ago, and we have John playing with a toy of the Flash and Superman, and there's a great line about, and I love this.
I agree.
Who do you think is faster, Mommy, Superman or Flash? And, I'm pretty sure Superman is, John, no question. It'd be a way more fair if Flash is. How so? Because Superman's got tons of powers. He can fly and bend steel and stuff, and all the Flash can do is run super fast, so he should win. And that's always been my argument. And also my argument is the Flash is faster because he has the speed force, and he can travel through time.
But I think the best representation of that was in Smallville, where he's Bart, doesn't he?
Yeah.
And it's like, he kind of thinks he's a little bit faster, but then at the end he realises he's nowhere near as fast as Bart. Bart he just takes off at the end, doesn't he? And he's like, you can't get anywhere near him.
That is one of the best scenes of... And, I mean, yes, quote-unquote, Bart was Impulse, because they couldn't use the Flash, because at that time there was going to be a Flash movie.
Yeah.
So they called him Impulse. But to me, he's still basically the Flash. And that's one of the best representations of Superman and the Flash running. Because, see, I know they try to do the fan service in Justice League with Superman racing the Flash. But to me, it's only a really good race when they're both running. I don't like when Superman flies and the Flash runs. I like when they both run. And I also don't like when there's live-action Supermans and they don't actually show him running fast. They're like, either he's flying or he's not moving fast.
I agree.
He can run fast. Like one of my favorite scenes is in... if you watch it, in Superman and Lois, when there's the scene in the pilot where the stuff falls on the boys in the barn, Clark takes off running, and he's not super speed, but he is faster than what a normal person would be moving. It's like he's holding back, but he can only do so much holding back. So I think it's really cool. But
no, I agree. I'm sorry, just one more thing. I don't know we can get back around this. Batman Beyond the car with the Justice League Unlimited, there's a scene where Superman tears off across the water and he runs fast, and I loved it because in the animated series, I think we only ever saw him like run fast like twice or something. Maybe and that was when he was young Clark, I think.
Yeah.
So I kind of liked that he kind of used that because I think like there's times where he would need to run fast and times where he would need to fly. He couldn't just
exactly
do what. So yeah,
that's why. Not to go on a tangent, but in Man of Steel, when Jonathan's standing there and he tells Clark not to move because the tornado, technically he should be able to run fast enough to grab his dad. And I mean, I understand the concept of that scene, but the fact that he goes back for the dog and then it's like it could have played out differently.
It was a good idea, and the execution wasn't quite. That's my only complaint about Man of Steel as well. It's just that scene. I think if I could go back and re-edit, I think if it was edited a bit tighter, I think it'd be all right because I think it should be a split-second decision, and then he's like, "Oh my god, I should have saved him or whatever."
They should be running, and like Jonathan turns around, and then Clark, right when he turns around, he's like, "Here, Mommy," turns around, and right as he turns around, like you should see everything moving quick.
Like,
and then as he turns around, it goes into slow motion, and he sees his dad say no, and is gone.
Yeah.
And then it goes back to normal speed.
Yeah. Because I remember thinking at the time, if I'd have been working on it, I would have probably said to Zack Snyder, like, I think you need to do this for this. Because it needs... Even if Martha's holding him back as well or something, just to make it a little bit... I just think there's so much time passes, isn't there? You're like...
Yeah, he's like, Mom, stay here, and he's watching.
He could have gone at normal speed and got him.
yeah, exactly.
So yeah, I kind of give it a pass because I understand what they were going for, but I think I must admit when I watch Man of Steel, it's probably the one scene that's when I might get up and go get a drink or go to the toilet or whatever. Because I think that is the scene where I just think if he'd just done a little bit extra with it. Because if it was a split-second decision, it'd be a little bit more acceptable. But because he's like watching him for half an hour, you're kind of like, just go on, what do you say? Anyway, sorry.
No, you're fine. And I agree. Like editing is key. Like you tighten that junk up. So, the issue 7 starts. They're in the fire. John gets them out. There's no real, just that flashback at the beginning with the thing. Clark's battling the guy in the suit. He's angry that he's doing all this for some stupid trash television. Clark melts the camera and the news band, so they have no footage. Hyacinth gets the part of the stone that Henshaw has. Inner Gang shows up. They're going to shoot John and Lois because they're out. Clark swoops in and picks them up and takes them. He tells them to close their eyes because they're moving so fast. And this is where they have to kind of explain things to John. And they're trying to explain to him like about from another multiverse, and they're like, have you heard about
could you imagine? Have you heard of the multiverse? And as soon as he says no, you're like, oh, I was relying on you knowing about it.
So yeah, it was kind of funny because they're like trying to high concepts to this child, and he like I think they do it well where he understands enough, but still is angry but also excited because like Clark takes off because he's seeing visions, and John's like, that is just so cool, and she's like, I feel the same way. And then we see that she wants that piece of the other piece of the stone is actually in.
Yeah, conveniently, in the fortress.
So.
Well, surely she must have come back at some point because this story didn't get wrapped up here, does it?
It kind of does. I mean, it's weird because, like, here it is on issue 8. We start...
That panel of him flying towards Earth is brilliant, by the way. I'll never find that out. It's beautiful, that.
I like that this last book doesn't have a flashback. It just starts,
because it's in modern day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because he starts to tries to fly, doesn't he? Yeah.
And he tells her like he's got to protect her from Intergang. Clark goes to his fortress, finds her. He's flying. He goes and he finds her fighting.
Yeah, that's where the panel is where he's flying. That I loved.
Henshaw and the agent and her, and then it dawns on him where the other piece is. Vines attack him. Her sword cuts him. He's fighting, uses his heat vision. Lots of inserts here into this issue for Rebirth advertisement. The agent starts shooting bullets at her. She stops them. Basically, yeah, you're right. I need to look this up because she leaves because she says she wants the stone, and I shall have it. And she leaves, and then the agent basically says he's had a theory that all these miraculous things have happened and somebody's been there. And he just flies off. And even Henshaw still says, I don't know, I just met him for the first time. And covers for Superman. And then we're back at the farm, and he shows up, and he tells John and Lois what happened. She talked about her books coming out, and that'll get rid of Intergang because the police are already making arrests. And then Clark gives a speech about feeling odd, and he's telling him that, everything that everything will be okay. And he gives John his cape. And it's the cape that he had, his red cape, and then John relaxes, and the last page is John flying up and, says, ta-da, and Lois says, I always knew you were my little Superboy. And it's a great story and a great just version of the characters. Yeah. And especially when you think where it's going to go, like it's a nice little segue story in the sense of, and it's crazy because it doesn't feel that old, but yet all the advertisements for 2 months are all for Batman v Superman.
Oh, really? Oh, gosh.
What
was that now, about 5-6 years ago now, was it?
Yeah. It was in 2016, so it'd be...
I should know that. I was you, my summer boss. My oldest one, I mean. Not my youngest.
So yeah, that wraps it up.
Yeah, I like that he don't fly until he can't fly until he gets the cape. I think that's a good little. Like, I don't know what you call it. What would you? Kind of like thing, you know what I mean? Don't you? Like, there's always that moment in there where they're going to fly. They need that little push or whatever. I feel like the cape is the thing that helps him have the confidence to fly. If that makes sense.
So, but yeah. Well, we're going to say this. It's been a great chat. We're going to kind of put a pin in it here because we're going long. We don't want to go too long.
I know, sorry.
No, that is not
it's me and my segues.
Segues are great. What we'll do is, I know it's getting later there for you, and we'll just have to plan to have you back again to chat sometime. But any final thoughts you want to share on anything, and how can people reach you on social media if you want them to talk to you?
Yeah, if you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at SteveBob1984, and if you want to follow the Slasher Vidcast, it's on YouTube, but like I say, I haven't done an episode for a long time, but I'm going to get back to it when I feel like it.
Alright, everybody. That was Steve. Thanks, Steve, for being here. I'm glad you came.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And remember...
Look up in the sky!
We just want to say, if you've enjoyed this podcast, please check out other podcasts on the Press Play Podcast Network. Remember to check out Krypton Report on all social media platforms. Go to linktree.com/Krypton Report. You find all of our information right there. And if you want to keep Krypton from exploding, join our $1 a month Patreon. That's right, for $1 a month, you'll get extra special content that you don't get on the main show, like movie commentaries and whatever else comes out of our mouths. So check it out, patreon.com/Krypton Report.
If you are like Tyler and James and can't get enough super talk, check out these other podcasts. Digging for Kryptonite, Supergirl Radio, The Last Sons of Krypton, The Superboy Legacy Podcast, All-Star Superfans, Superman the Animated Podcast, The Aspiring Kryptonians, Always Hold On to Smallville, Caped Wonder, The Geek of Steel, and Truth, Justice, and Hope Podcast.
Hey, we're going to press pause and hear a few words from our other podcasts on Press Play Podcast Network.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. Here's how Books with Brooks works. We read one book a month, and then we talk about it. Classics like Stephen King's The Shining, debut novels like We Are the Brennans by Tracy Lang, and tons of other compelling, life-changing stories, one book and 1 month at a time. So come read along with us, and then listen in.
This is Dan Jurgens, and if you want to have a good time, keep listening to the Krypton Report.